Hello again, everybody. Red of Half Century Collecting Sports Cards here with another episode of my favorite 400 sports cards. These are the cards we featured last time. 5 cards there. We're going to go with 5 more here today. We're in the mid 140s. I've been watching a lot of these other videos people have been putting out as we're getting to year's end here of either their favorite cards or top financial value cards. And either way, it's been a lot of fun to watch. I've really enjoyed watching those types of videos. Something I'm kind of just doing over time, and I'm not doing it by value, but just some of my favorite cards. And I don't know if they're really in my top 400, but estimates and just a way, I guess, to show some cool cards. And today we're going to start out, we're in the 140s. This is what I think's one of the coolest rookie cards, a 1954 Topps Al Kaline. Now, if I were to send this in for grading, I know it would get a 1 because there's a little surface crease in there. There's some paper loss on the back, but nonetheless, I just think with that youthful picture, he's 18 years old on that picture, taken the end of 1953, and then that gorgeous background. I think you just got great color on that whole card itself. I think it's just a cool card, why it's making my list. He was a 15-time All-Star, and in the next season, 1955, he became the youngest player to win an AL batting title at age 20. Same age as Ty Cobb was, but I guess he was just a little bit younger. Looks like 54 and 55 used the same image, but that secondary picture is a little different. They're both cool cards. Talking a little bit more about that season, that 55 season when he won the batting title. He hit 340 that year, had 200 hits, 27 homers, 102 RBIs, and came in second in MVP voting. And then right in through the 50s and 60s, he just kept going as the Tigers' best player. Never really had much for bad years in there. And then something happened in 1970 that I thought was worth talking a little bit about. So there's this 1970 Topps card, high number card. But in that season in Milwaukee, a game against the Brewers, Les Kane is pitching, rookie pitcher for the Tigers. The batter for the Brewers, bases loaded, 2 outs, is Roberto Pena. I know he's shown on the Padres there, but was playing with the Brewers at the time. And Pena hits this deep fly ball to right center field. Kaline in right, of course. And in center field for the Tigers was Jim Northrup. And they're converging on the ball. And as they're running, boom, they collapse. They collide. Kaline collapses to the ground. Northrup was down for a while, but got back up. It sounded like Kaline, the ball was actually in Kaline's glove, but popped out. And only nobody was going for the ball as they're just looking at Kaline down on the ground. Pena rounded the bases. He got an inside the park grand slam, the only one ever in the history of County Stadium in Milwaukee. But Willie Horton is racing over from left field. The bullpen, they're not that far away with the fence in the way, however, and they're trying to get out there and trying to help Kaline. By the time Horton gets over there, Kaline is blue, not breathing. His tongue apparently had been swallowed into his throat, and his jaw was dislocated. Kaline was a boxer, earlier in his life, and had learned some emergency tactics, and he was able to clear Kaline's tongue from his throat, helped him to get breathing again, and Kaline, of course, survived, played through 1974. There was only 1 death in the history during a game, and luckily Kaline was not the second. But the rest of Kaline's career, he ended up retiring after 1974 when he just passed the 3,000 hit mark. He was only the 12th player ever to do that. He had 399 home runs, 297 career batting average, won 10 Gold Gloves, and had a fantastic 92.8 career WAR. There is his, I think, awesome rookie card, 1954 Topps. So we're going to go with another outfielder named Al. It's our second card for the day, and this is 1932 U.S. Carmel. Al was called Bucketfoot Al because he stepped in the bucket all the time. U.S. Carmel was dated as a 32 set. Jefferson Burdick called it the R328s, but it probably was a 1933, so similar to that 48-49 with Leaf. They looked at the card, and a lot of the card backs talking about 1932 season. Simmons itself doesn't so much, but even Rogers Hornsby's card talks about him getting traded, which didn't happen until October of 32. So it is probably an actual 1933 set. You can see they came out, it sounded like more regionally around the Boston area. United States Caramel Company there out of East Boston. You could turn in, what they talk about here, you could turn in all the cards and get a baseball, or you could turn in 3 complete sets and get a fielder's glove, which was worth $3, either right or left-handed. Now in this set, so to do that, there were 32 cards. 27 of them are baseball. The others were, there were a few boxing, led by Jack Dempsey, a few golfing, led by Bobby Jones. And then baseball, you had Babe Ruth, amongst a lot of now Hall of Famers. Now, these are tough cards. Only 37 of these Al Simmons have been graded by SGC. I'm not sure what the PSA numbers are on it, but usually, you go back then and SGC might even have more than PSA. Of course, this is an unslabbed card, although it was at one time. I actually found the old label I had. It was a PSA label as a 4. But back when I got this card 25 years ago or so, I did not like slab cards. They didn't fit in with the rest of my Hall of Famers, so I cracked him out. And he's been uncracked for many years. I think it's a great looking card. Al Simmons was born Al Szmanski, who's spelled pretty crazily Szymанski, and so people had trouble with that name, so he changed it to Simmons, which he saw in some kind of an advertisement. There was a Simmons baking or something like that, and so he went with Al Simmons, and he was a lot like Al Kaline for having a great early career. His second year, though he wasn't as young as Kaline, playing for the Connie Mack Philadelphia A's, which is 1925, he had 253 hits, 24 homers, 129 RBIs, and hit .387. Came in second, just like Kaline, in MVP. He actually cracked the top 5 for MVP 6 times. Also 6 times had over 200 hits. In his first 11 years in the big league, so 11 years, hit each of those years over 300, and each of those years over 100 RBIs. And including in there, he had 3 years over 150 RBIs and 3 years hitting over 380. He was mostly a left fielder, but he played some center field, and he retired just shy of 3,000 hits. Did go over the 300 homer mark. Had a .334 career batting average and 68.3 career WAR. Al Simmons. Okay, next we have got a football card, and this is a card as a kid that I pulled out of a pack. So I would have been 11 years old in 1976. And so it's got a little bit of wear because I was 11. And I like to play with my cards. But by 11, not as bad as the cards from like 73, 74 when I was real young. But I got to see a lot of sweetness as a player, because with the Bears, my favorite team was the Vikings. So 2 times a year, Vikings and Bears met. I will say most of those were Bear losses. But I really fell in love with him after this game, which was against the Vikings, breaking an NFL record, 275 yards rushing. And just the fact that he was just such an explosive, strong running back with moves. I mean, quick moves, and he'd run over people. And I also liked his backfield mate, Roland Harper. They were a pretty cool pair. Were rookies in the same 75 season. When he retired, Payton, that is, he was the all-time NFL leading rusher, and unfortunately, he died early, age 46, from cholangiocarcinoma, which is a bile duct type of cancer. But he was a great humanitarian, and similar to Roberto Clemente, that over a little bit, who they have an award named after. Walter Payton is someone that they give the Walter Payton Award to, which is like the greatest humanitarian of the year kind of in football. And I've got to show, because he was such a dynamic running back, we got to show a little bit of highlights. So Walter Payton here in action. This one against my Vikings. Running over people, breaking tackles. Here even throwing the ball. He threw 8 touchdowns in his career. He was also a good receiver.
Then all of a sudden, big explosion.
Fast and explosive, could jump.
They still trying to get together. That's the type of runner I
against the Vikings.
Walter Payton was more than just a great runner. He was the most complete football player in the history of the
Paul
game.
Krause, Nate Wright. It's through all of them. All right. So let's go to the next one, and we're going to do something I have not done a lot of, but we're going to go back to back with football cards. So we're going to 1951 here with Slingin' Sammy Baugh. Now, as a kid, I knew about Sammy just because I was kind of a nerd who read a lot of books and old football books. Sammy Baugh was listed for the highest punting average in a single season, 51.4 back in 1940, and then a career punting average at 45.1. But little did I know that he was a lot more than a punter. He was, probably the first big-time passing quarterback, first guy that made throwing the ball more of a weapon, not just something you did in desperation. He had a year throwing over 70% completion rate in an age when you're lucky to hit 50%. And that year where he was over 70% is still ranked 4th in NFL history. He was also a good safety. He is the only player in NFL history to intercept 4 passes in one season and throw 4 touchdown passes in the same game. I think that's pretty incredible. And he also led the league in interceptions and passing in the same year. And in that year, he averaged 46 yards a punt, which didn't lead the league, but had to be way up there. One of the best football players of all time, and he was in the first Hall of Fame class. So I guess we got to see a little Sammy Baugh, the Washington Redskins, in action. Love that number 77 catching touchdown passes. So this is Baugh on defense here. Interception. Throw one more pass. Slinging, you can see the way he slung the ball. Slingin' Sammy, they called him, and they did not call him Slingin' Sammy because of his football arm. He actually got called Slingin' Sammy because of his baseball days. Great baseball player as well. Got signed by the St. Louis Cardinals, and in the minor league system was playing shortstop, but had a hard time moving up because there was another guy in the system at the same time named Marty Marion, who just looked like he was going to stay ahead of Sammy Baugh, and for that reason, Baugh decided to play football instead of his first love, which was baseball, but ended up being a good decision for Mr. Baugh. All right, last card of the day, be a quick one. And I think it's just a card that looks really cool. 1967 Topps Ernie Banks, one of my favorite cards, Mr. Cub. Let's play 2. And this one, he's a 2-time MVP. He was on my top 10 shortstops. By this time, 67, he's no longer that elite defending shortstop, but he's more of a slugging, just first baseman. He was a slugging shortstop too, but over 500 career home runs. But even in this 67 season, he came in 14th in the MVP voting. Reason I like this card, awesome color, and the awesome Ernie Banks smile. 67's got a lot of just cool looking cards. Nice pose. Nice bright back. See, at this time he's already over 400 career home runs. All right, that is it. Do a little quick look at who we had today. Got a 68 Willie McCovey Sporting News to go with it. But those are the 5 cards. Thanks for watching a lot. Have a happy new year, everybody. We'll see you again probably next week.